Good morning and welcome to the September monthly membership meeting with the South Orange County Economic Coalition. I'm Paul Simons, Vice President of Kurt Pringle and Associates, but more importantly today, the former chairman of the South Orange County Economic Coalition. Thank you for joining us online as we are live at Hannah's Restaurant and Bar in beautiful Rancho Santa Margarita. You may recall a couple of months back, Governor Newsom handed down an order requiring folks who want to get back to business that they need to operate outdoors. They need to operate at 50% capacity. They need to operate with social distancing in mind, and we've deployed that here today as well. We're going to talk about what has taken place in California, specifically in Orange County, how businesses are operating in an outdoor reality, and it's going to be a really good discussion. Just a reminder, you can provide questions, anything that comes up, just online there, hit the button below. Get those questions over. We'll answer as many of those as we possibly can as we move forward here this morning. So with that, let's jump right into our first panel. We've got a great group, and with us first off is Dave Hanna, owner of this beautiful restaurant. Thank you for having us here today, Dave.
It's great to be here.
Also from the outlets at San Clemente, thanks for making the drive. I guess we're driving up from San Clemente today. Correct. Is Kimberly Dascus Flora, who is the Director of Marketing for the outlets. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And way down there at the end, I feel like I have to yell at you, Ryan.
You do.
Is Ryan Cora, the CEO and founder of Cora Events. And thank you for being with us today, Ryan. So, Dave, talk to me about getting reopened. How did this go for you? I know it's probably a long story, but a long story short, how did it go about reopening here outdoors at Hannah's?
Well, definitely it's staying in the process and not the outcome. So it's a mindset and how you look at everything. Moving outdoors, we kind of saw it coming down June 1st when we were 50% occupancy. The city, with Brad McGurr, Carol Gamble, and our building and planning proposed a way
just because Carol's on the second panel doesn't mean you need to
promote we need to give her a plug.
Okay.
But they proposed a way to expand the outside seating, and we took our time and drew a plan and wanted to not just make a temporary outdoor area, but do something that looks permanent. And July 1st rolled around, we were shut down for indoor dining, all outside, and the city and our landlord, Marty Hannigan, give him a plug as well.
Absolutely.
They approved it in one day. We got it stamped. The next day we had our K-rails delivered, and then our framers were here, and we knocked out both of these decks within 1 week. So really, it saved our restaurant and saved our team.
That's incredible. We're going to get more to how the restaurant's operating here in just a few moments. Kimberly, talk to me a little bit about the outlets. Now, the outlets is set up very differently. Reopening, how did reopening go for the outlets and some of the businesses that are there?
I think, we're fortunate to be an outdoor shopping center, so we had a leg up in terms of that. But still, to quickly, make changes and make it work for not only just the employees and the staff and the owners of the businesses, but also the community, make people feel safe. It was, challenging, of course, but I think that everybody did a really great job. We're lucky to have a lot of equipment on site that we were able to just provide to the restaurants that needed to go outside. So, it looks seamless to the naked eye, but of course it was a lot of hard work and perseverance.
Perfect.
To get that done.
And a lot of hard work and perseverance. I think that's a perfect lead-in for Ryan here. Ryan, you're kind of the new guy. You're like the non-Orange County guy here today.
I grew up in Orange County.
Well, now you did come down from the South Bay area, right?
Yeah.
All right. So tell us a little bit about Cora Events. What is Cora Events? What do you guys do, first off?
Yeah, so Cora Events, pre-COVID, was building the largest events in the nation. Coachella and Stagecoach and the Long Beach Grand Prix. And we learned about COVID right after we had finished building BNP Tennis at Indian Wells Tennis Garden for 90 days, and it was supposed to open the next day. And we learned about the first case of COVID and its effect. And so the event industry, even prior to restaurants or anyone, we were the first to really be shut down.
So now, given your business model, how did you pivot? And more specifically, how have you had any sort of impact with restaurants, or not necessarily even restaurants, but restaurants or merchants here in Orange County?
Yeah, I think Orange County's been an incredible area. I think so much of this is about attitude, right? so much about economic recovery or economic work as about attitude and vision. And I think Orange County, in comparison to all the different counties we've had the chance to work in, they've just had such a more progressive attitude towards it. So we took our assets that we were using for events and first started working with hospitals. We got to work with some incredible hospitals in Orange County that helped them open up. And specifically with restaurants or cities, it was how do we utilize our assets of building outdoor temporary facilities to help these businesses reopen. And so we've got the chance to build Forest Street out in Laguna Beach and a lot of different parklets and throughout Orange County. And so deploying assets that were for events to restaurants that needed to reopen was what we did.
That's incredible. Kimberly, at the outlets, what specifically did you guys do to help get your businesses online with the governor's reopening opportunity?
Yeah, well, we created an entire campaign around it. It was so through signage and things like that. We implemented things on our signage on our benches to create a situation where people could easily sit 6 feet apart. We provided masks to those that needed them. We provided all of the equipment, like I said earlier, to the restaurants especially to be able to open outdoors. And then even our retail stores, we provided stanchions, decals for the floor, again, keeping people 6 feet apart, and just really tried to provide everything that we could in terms of material equipment, but then also online with marketing and our website and social media. Anytime there was a change in the way we were able to do business, we made sure to articulate that through social media.
Between what Ryan has talked about and what you've just laid out, there's none of this happens, I guess, individually or in a vacuum. So Dave, perhaps you can talk about some of the different partnerships and stakeholders that you've been able to engage with to bring this new sort of reality to life here at Hannah's.
Sure. I mean, it starts with the team. You have to have your team that needs to be on board, and chemistry with the team is more important than strategy. Then the city. I mean, I must have emailed the city, called them numerous times every week, and they were incredibly responsive and reactive. And we were able to again just build this patio. Our banker, acquiring the PPP loan. It's just texting them. We really didn't have all the information, so they were really informative and kept us on board. And getting the funding was really a key for our restaurant.
So here at this restaurant, I think it's a good barometer and a measuring stick for maybe what other restaurants are doing. And I hasten to compare one restaurant to another, just like we always say, you don't compare one city to another,
sure,
right? But give us a sense for how business is going, and maybe we have this parklet or this little patio area set up. There are two of these, and I think there's another lounge area that you did as well, right? So maybe walk us through what you have here and how has business gone.
I mean, businesses, we're hanging in there. I mean, you got to look at it. When COVID hit, well, pre-COVID, we were crushing it. And when COVID hit, it was a reset for every restaurant. And, we all went to zero. It didn't matter who you were, whether you're Thomas Keller or, a little taco stand. So we had to start over, and definitely in a crisis mode. And what's been really interesting through this adversity, innovation, advancement, has occurred. So, we're hanging in there. We're only about 30% capacity.
30% of what you would have been without this situation.
Correct.
Right.
We had over 220 seats in our restaurant. We're about 75, but our curbside is robust. We are booked, on our patios, and we're just trying to figure out new ways, new avenues for revenue.
Good. I wonder, Kimberly, if you can talk to me a little bit about what has been some of the biggest challenges accommodating the governor's COVID orders that you guys have faced.
I think just it's you're going to get a mixed bag of customers that some believe in wearing the masks and some don't. We only can enforce it to a certain degree. So there's challenges, I think, for the employees of the restaurants and the retail stores. There's that fine line of how to handle a situation like that. So we just try to support, in any way that we can. The city's been really helpful in all aspects of the reopening. But just, some of those challenges with kind of having a presence there with security and things like that, but without overstepping our boundaries, because again, you can only do so much. We follow the mandates, but we have to be careful with how we handle that situation.
So and maybe a question for both of you.
Sure.
Dave, how do you handle sort of the cleaning and the cleanliness and having to make sure everything's socially distanced and similar with you at the outlets? Is the outlets engaged in that effort, or is that each individual restaurant's sort of responsibility? Dave, how are you kind of handling that here?
Well, I mean, just when we brought everybody back, just to get them used to wearing a mask, it took a couple weeks. But now we're accepting it, and it's not an issue. Obviously, just being vigilant with our sanitation and cleanliness and how we deliver the food. We have to talk about it every day. And line up and throughout service. So it needs to be ingrained in our culture.
Sure. And then from an outlet standpoint, you're kind of a step removed at a higher level. But how have you been involved in sort of those efforts?
Well, same thing. I mean, center-wide, we have our measures in place to keep everything clean and sanitized, and a very specific schedule. We have hand sanitation stations throughout the center. Again, the signage and all of those measures, and then the restaurants and stores individually have done an amazing job. I mean, we talked about attitude, dedication, all of those things, and just having to make changes so quickly into this new way of doing business and working. I really have to say the employees throughout the entire center, it's really impressive, that they've had to do these things. But the number one thing has been, keeping everything clean and sanitized, and with turnover of guests and making sure that everything's up to par.
Perfect. So Ryan, we talked earlier about taking what was event sort of stuff and transitioning that into the business community in response to COVID, right? So can you just maybe paint me a word picture for what does that look like? Use Forest Avenue as an example in Laguna Beach. I know you guys answered the bell there with the city. You built out parklet situations that look similar to what we're sitting on today. What is it that you guys have done in specific Laguna Beach or maybe elsewhere?
Yeah, I think of two things. I think of optics, I think of reality, right? Parklets are optics. Masks are optics. When I think of Dave, and I'm sitting here thinking about the numbers, I took on additional debt to build out, right, PPP loans, and to then be at 30% capacity. Then there's reality. And that's what people don't talk enough about, is what are the realities of business? What happens when all of these things have to come back and be paid for? And why I think why coalitions are so critical is optics matter right now. Getting things outdoors, feeling safe, distancing, that's great. But the reality of capacities. And so as a company that's assisting restaurants or cities is, I try to work and say, okay, we can do these things for optics, but what are the realities of numbers? How big does this parklet really need to be to really help Dave's business? And so that's where I focus. I go in, I listen to the numbers, I listen to where they're at, and I'm not saying, hey, this parklet's the right size. It's what does the capacity need to be to really facilitate the success of his business, not just the optics of his business.
Right. And so in Laguna Beach in particular, you guys went in and built out some parklets, as a for instance, and not only for restaurants but for merchants as well.
And why I think Laguna Beach is a great example, because it's optics and reality. When I go down to Laguna Beach, I walk the different streets. There's more people on that street now than there were before because they built it out. It looks nice. Other cities that, they're trying to, they're extremely budget conscious. I think they're short-sighted. So they do something for optics, but it doesn't deal with the reality. Laguna Beach did something with optics, and the reality is they created something that's beautiful and that people want to go to.
Very good. Yeah, it is. It's a fantastic little setup there. And I think there's going to be long-term sort of challenges. You talk about realities. Kimberly, at the outlets, what do you see as sort of the long-term challenges coming out of the situation that we're in, trying to get these businesses operating at a percentage or a fraction of what capacity was? What is the long-term sort of perspective from the outlets?
I think, and I agree with what Ryan was saying, optics versus reality, and we've tried to be very thoughtful in the way that we've helped the restaurants come outdoors and give them what they need in order to do so, and the space, the appropriate space in order to, have the return on investment, so to speak. So I think, the challenges have been bringing employees back and being able to have a full staff that's, as of today's numbers.
Right.
And being able to operate full hours. So we have set hours for the shopping center, and we typically would require that the stores and restaurants are open the same hours. But not all of them can do that yet, mostly because of staffing.
Sure.
So there's just a lot of moving parts that need to all come together in order to have them be full-fledged operational.
Yeah, and Dave, long term, there's going to be impacts here for your business. What do you think this looks like from a long-term perspective?
I mean, one of the positive takeaways is there's a cultural shift. There's a change happening here. People now want to sit outside. It's a European style of dining, and every guest has asked me, "Is this going to be permanent?" So I'm hopeful. We're at 30%, but when this is over, when we get back indoors, we're going to have something here that we hope is going to be permanent, and we're going to catch up. So I think it's really cool that our community is getting used to dining outside, and they're loving it.
Yeah. Hey Ryan, what do you see in terms of what are the different ways that restaurants and merchants can move their stuff outdoors? Does it have to be a big, optical, grandiose, beautiful setup? Can it be something simple to be as effective? How do you differentiate the two?
I think businesses are trying to figure out how to engage with their customers differently, right? That's ultimately what outdoor dining is. There was only so many nights you wanted to do takeout, and eventually you wanted to sit somewhere and not have to rush. And so I think merchants are going to need to think about, how do I want to engage? Do I want to buy something on Amazon, or do I want to touch clothing? And if I do, what does that experience look like? So I would think of experience and then work backwards. What experience would somebody want to buy? And then what would that look like? And companies like ours, once somebody kind of can cast that vision, or we can work with someone, then you can kind of work it through. I think right now, events, people are starting to cast a vision to experience. It's very different, but you're beginning to hear people think, I don't want to watch music from my living room anymore.
Right.
I'd like to watch something live. Okay.
I am jonesing to go to a Dodgers game. I'm telling you.
Well, I think it's, I think again, going to that optics versus reality is, what has really changed about COVID in 6 months? What's really changed about it? Okay, we're distanced, but has COVID really changed? Is COVID ever going to go away? And the answer is no. So now it's a matter of, that's the person I made mad. I took their parking
But
spot.
it's a beer truck. It's a beer truck.
It is the beer truck for Labor Day weekend, so we'll give them a pass.
So,
well, you talk about experiences, though, right? And sort of that juxtaposing that with the realities of Amazon, that is not new for the outlets.
Right.
That's exactly what you guys have been battling for a long time.
Yeah.
And just getting up and running, the different challenges you had with getting the outlets to become a thing.
Right.
Now you are a thing, and you're doing well, presumably, and then COVID happens.
Right.
And you're going to need to capitalize exactly on what Ryan's talking about, I
Right.
imagine. And that is this idea of an experience and attracting people to the outlets. So what
Right.
are you doing? What are you doing in terms of creating an experience there at the outlets?
I mean, I think one of the things, and this is going back to the restaurants, we just had a new restaurant open that's an ocean air patio. It's called Asada. Scott McIntosh and Rosemary McIntosh of Reunion Kitchen and the Asada in Laguna Beach. They opened this beautiful restaurant, and it was designed before COVID hit, but it happens to have a beautiful open air patio and the windows in the front of the restaurant open. So they were able to open August 17th, I believe they opened, in a different manner, even though COVID is something that's a reality. So experiences like that, there are future plans for open, ocean view restaurants on the property. We have a beautiful Metrolux theater being built. It's supposed to open in early 2021. Of course, we don't know what theater viewers will, be in for it yet, but that's another, so there are these experiences that were already in place and starting to evolve. Yeah. We just signed a Lululemon lease in the middle of all of this. So
very good.
Yeah, so we have a beautiful Chick-fil-A opened right before. So we just have a lot of new things happening. And we have done a lot of big events at that shopping center, and we're just having to, switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
Shopping Extravaganza, which has been a big event that supports charities, It's going to go all online, and it's going to be a 30-day event versus a 2-day in-person event.
Okay.
So we're still trying to, evolve during this and also before this happened to create a full experience for people.
Yeah, and Dave, you've created an experience here, right? I mean, as opposed to, perhaps sitting inside was great, but now folks are here and you get to take advantage of the beautiful weather, and there is this sort of European outdoor dining. What kind of feedback are you hearing from customers at this point in terms of their experience here at Hannah's?
Well, we always say you can't compete on price. You can only compete on the experience. And definitely, the pent-up demand is out of control. People just want to sit at a table and talk to each other. And we know when you dine and you share a meal with family or friends, this is the essence of living. And so we want to assist in that experience for them. It's beautiful. It's why restaurateurs get into business, to change lives and make a difference.
Right.
I know the footprint. I feel like the footprint of restaurants are going to change. There's going to be less space inside. We're going to think about outside. Now when we redesign restaurants, we're working on a coffee house, grab and go, kind of an Oakville grocery store style place where, it's more quick service, still farm to market products. But, I think the innovation and how we're moving it, there's a lot of positives to it.
Okay. I feel like, and this, I'm going to back into, again, I haven't hosted one of these in a while, so forgive me. Ryan gave a little commercial in the outlets we talked about. Give us a little commercial about your restaurant. Tell us about what you guys serve here, what makes you guys awesome.
We've been here 16 years. We're a prime steakhouse. We source produce 150 miles from the restaurant. We're about sustainable, organic, free range. But we're also more about our community. And again, focused on all the charity work that we do, mentoring our team, and just, again, creating a positive experience for people, memorable experiences, changing lives. And it's, personally, it's my ministry. And I think if we can just take that approach, again, it's a growth mindset, is how you view everything. We're going to face failure and adversity throughout our lives. We are constantly tested, but the test, it reveals a lot being tested, and its ability to actually ascend.
Well, the year has tested all of us, right? I mean, we've all had to learn a lot. Ryan, what have you learned throughout this whole process? What has your company learned throughout this whole process?
Oof. Well, from numbers, we went from 180 employees to 15. We went from 120,000 square feet to 60. We went from 30 trucks on the road to 5. So we had to adapt so quickly. I think you learn. I think as a business owner, you always present, or as leaders, you're on these panels or different things. You want to present the best face, right? You're always trying to present something of strength and a great attitude. And the reality is, some challenges you have to be extremely vulnerable and honest about. And I think that's what we've learned. We've learned, I think, to talk very openly and very honestly about the reality of the situation, the reality of our industry. And I think in doing so, I gained a voice. I gained a voice. The last 6 months, everything I've gotten to build has been good. Got to build hospitals, testing centers, help guys like Dave reopen their restaurants. So you feel like what you're doing is good. It wasn't that building Coachella wasn't good, but when you're a part of helping people survive, I think that's what you learn. You learn what really matters, and all the other kind of BS that kind of goes to the back burner. And I think that's what I've learned.
And Kimberly, we're bringing people, in a time where folks were stuck at home, when they weren't being able to engage one another. The outlets and folks like yourself are providing an opportunity for people to reconvene once again. That's got to be very special for your organization.
Oh, it is for sure. I mean, we really focus on the fact that we're an open air center. We've got the ocean right there. It's a place you can come, and we do have the social distancing in place. So we want people to feel comfortable and excited to be outside, really, is the bottom line. And also, same thing, like Ryan was saying, we've learned a lot about people through all of this, and it's so incredible, especially, I know there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into running a restaurant. And so to see people be able to rise to these challenges and make the customer experience amazing still has been pretty incredible.
Yeah, very good. Dave, talk to me a little bit about your community here. Now, I happen to know this is a special town, right? But you, like everyone else, had to be shut down for a time. You reopen, you go through the steps to build this patio out, and then you see the community sort of come back together. What has that experience been like for you?
It's overwhelming. I mean, the phone is ringing off the hook. I need help answering the phone. Curbside was out of control. We had to call a timeout the first week and reorganize and rethink how we were going to provide curbside, giving everybody time slots and spacing things out. We had to retool our menu and build it for speed. So we're doing things moment to moment and just trying to change it up, kind of throwing darts at this, and hopefully you hit something.
We do have a question, and just a reminder, I could sit here and run my mouth all morning long, but we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to shoot questions over online if you're able to do so. We do have a question online, and it has to do with really pricing, whether that's retail or menu pricing. Do we feel like prices of goods and services are going to go up, or are they going to go up sharply? Are they going to go up gradually? What's the cost of doing business for you, and how does that expand to the customer?
I mean, just think about all the gloves and the sanitation supplies. Everything has increased for us. Definitely, food has increased. The meat shortage did not help us. And also, minimum wage is increasing again. So
right.
we have a lot of challenges.
That will be a different topic for a different monthly meeting. No, that's a fair point. What are you seeing in terms of prices, and how will that impact customers?
I mean,
Kimberly?
It's different. I think, we're an outlet center, so we're already greatly reduced in terms of the price of things. And we're still running the specials we always have. We're still doing the big Labor Day sales and things like that. So I can't speak on behalf of an individual business and their cost of goods and how that might impact us. But I haven't really seen a change in terms of the retail stores and what the sales are.
The truth is, Ryan, right? All costs will have to be borne somewhere, right? And so there is a cost of doing business that all of us are going to have to participate in.
I think what's really difficult about costs and events is, again, going back to capacity. So as 9/11 changed security going to the airport, so COVID will change safety going into an event. If events reduce their capacities, you would have to increase pricing, right? That is how music festivals were able to provide the level of music, was based on capacity. We're going to put 100,000 people into a venue so we can bring you the best artists from around the world. If you tell a music festival, well, you can only be at 30% capacity, you're going to reduce the quality of entertainment. You're going to reduce it, right? And so, no question, costs are going up. In events, I don't see it yet.
You don't see events coming back anytime soon?
I think I'm going to say something that would probably be the most controversial thing I'd say all morning is, I think 21 will be worse than 20. I think 21 will be worse than 20. And the reason being is, in 20, what people don't realize is the majority of events, the largest events in the country, are in January, February, March. A lot of these events were already underway. Deposits were made. There was action. There were people working on these things in the latter part of 19. When you look at 2021, you most likely won't have any PPP dollars. You won't have any of those build outs. All those people that deferred rents, deferred payments, deferred trucks, defer. Now you got 21, and you already hear it. CES, the biggest conferences, already pushed out of Q1, Q2. How are you even going to be prepared to take on Q3, Q4 from a capacity component? Dave said something really interesting. I heard he said, it takes 6 months to hire an employee, or not to hire, but to train. So true. So how do you get an entire industry like this not happening?
Yeah.
So I know people don't want to hear it, but I think 21 is harder on the event industry than 20.
I'm going to hope you're wrong. How about that? but I think you raise a fair point, and I think it's something we need to be mindful of and go into things with our eyes wide open. You mentioned employees and the time it takes to train employees. A question came in as well: the impact of employees through all of this, as it relates to training, as it relates to keeping them safe and exposure to COVID and what have you. I'll ask kind of all of you the same question. I'll start with you, Dave. How have you sort of tackled that effort?
Well, we did lose some people through unemployment and the PPP, and there was a lot of confusion and conflict. So we had to retool again. We've hired some great people. We try to hire the heart and train the brain. And it takes time to polish people up.
By the way, I've never heard that, but I love that. We're going to hire the heart and train the brain. I think that's a very cool way to think of it.
For restaurants, I mean, again, we're about hospitality and the experience. So if they have the heart, we can teach them the science. I wonder what's driving by. That's my contractor going by right there.
There you go.
You got to train. If you fail to train, you train to fail. So it's been a little more casual with outside than inside. So when we do transition inside, it's going to take us some time. We're not going to just be able to flip a switch and bring people into our restaurant. Right. We're going to have to call another timeout for 2 or 3 weeks and really do some serious training.
Yeah, sure. But in the near term, it's employees wearing masks, servers wearing masks.
Absolutely,
different cleanliness standards and whatever.
There's a new protocol. It's a new world, and everyone's accepting it and gets it, and it's been pretty easy.
Yeah. And what's going on at the outlets, Kimberly, as it relates to employees and getting them up and running in this new reality?
Same thing. I think all the measures that are supposed to be in place, training, all of those things. As the management staff that runs the center, we're definitely more of a skeleton crew.
Sure.
We're just all wearing many more hats than normal, and that's fine. Just like everybody else, everybody needs to roll up their sleeves and do what they need to do to keep things running. So.
Very good. And Ryan, you're employees on both sides, right? You've got your guys who are building stuff out, and then you're engaging with sort of restaurants and other business owners. What are you doing with your company and the employees, and how are they engaging with sort of their external stakeholders?
Good question. I think when I think of the event live industry of professionals, if you will, I think going back to what unemployment did was a huge confusion. Yeah. A lot of people left our industry because they made more money staying at home than coming to work. So what motivated a person? I think what you learned about who really wanted to work, who was really committed, right? So I think the biggest thing that I see in our industry is the change of roles. Now at events, or you're beginning to hear about protocol, is that there will be people that need to be COVID advocates, if you will. People that are on site and all they're focusing on is safety and responsibility and COVID related. So I think you see a person that might have been a one-dimensional employee, something that this is all I do, to now I do 5 things. And that's where I see the biggest change.
Yeah, very good. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough. It was new for me jumping back in the saddle with the organization, and I was glad to do it with the 3 of you to get things started. You guys were a wonderful first panel, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with the South Orange County Economic Coalition this morning.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for that. And with that, we're going to take just a break. We're going to let this first panel get on with their day, and then we are going to welcome in a couple of other very exciting panelists. We'll see you in just a moment.
The South Orange County Economic Coalition is the leading business organization throughout the region. We've been the voice of businesses in South Orange County for more than 50 years, and we work diligently to promote a strong economic climate and provide updates on important issues discussed at the state, regional, and local levels. Our members include key community stakeholders, businesses large and small, as well as public agencies, all committed to building a strong business climate both regionally and within our local communities. We advocate for our businesses and members by taking positions on legislation and local initiatives that have a direct impact on our communities. We hold monthly membership meetings, meet and greet events with our federal, state, and local legislators, and provide an annual economic report for South Orange County. Educate, facilitate, advocate. We're the South Orange County Economic Coalition. Learn more at economiccoalition.com.
Partners Bank of California is a proud sponsor of the South Orange County Economic Coalition and today's show. Partners Bank of California. We're not just a bank, we're a partner. Learn more at pbofca.com.
Hi, my name is Darissy and I serve as your Programs and Events Chair for the South Orange County Economic Coalition. During COVID, we have continued our commitment to keeping you connected by providing monthly online membership events with local leaders to discuss the most pressing issues facing our communities. With so much change in the world, it's important we hear from leaders about local issues. From distance learning to public safety, these meetings have offered an opportunity for members to engage, ask questions, and your voice is being heard. If you'd like to learn more about our upcoming events, please visit our website at economiccoalition.com/events. You can also follow us on any of our social media platforms to receive updates about our events and our business advocacy efforts. On behalf of the Coalition, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to today's program, and we hope to see you next month.
Once again, welcome to Hannah's Restaurant and Grill in beautiful Rancho Santa Margarita. I am Paul Simons. I'm hanging out with you today this morning as the moderator of our September monthly membership meeting of the South Orange County Economic Coalition. And today we are talking about getting businesses back online, but doing so outdoors as opposed to the traditional indoors. Our first panel talked about all kind of nuts and bolts of what's happening specifically on the ground in restaurants, at the outlets, in the entertainment industry, events industry. Now we're going to really localize the discussion, and with us we have Councilwoman from the city of Rancho Santa Margarita, Carol Gamble. Carol, I told you earlier, it's been too long. I'm just thrilled to see you today. Thanks for being with us.
It's great to have you here, Paul. Thanks so much to the South Orange County Economic Coalition to come to Rancho. Welcome.
Thank you. And also with us, we have the Executive Vice President of Partners Bank, Mike Chambers. Mike, welcome, man.
Thank you. Great to be here. And again, thanks for the invitation. What you guys do is important right now.
Absolutely. Well, we'll just jump right into it. And again, I mentioned it during the first panel, we don't like to do a lot of comparison of city to city, but we were talking earlier, and I have a pretty good sense of what you guys did here in Rancho Santa Margarita. Tell me what you guys did at the outset of the closure and the recognition that everything being closed wasn't going to be permanent.
Yes, thanks, Paul. I think Dave Hanna hit on it when he said, it begins with culture, and from your last segment. And so Rancho Santa Margarita's culture of our city staff and our city council is to be business friendly. As a founder of the city and a longtime city council member, I know exactly where the city's revenue sources come from. Even though we all write those big property tax checks, it actually is sales tax dollars that come to the community directly from our businesses that pays for city services. So we knew when our businesses were hit terribly, we knew that was going to have a tremendous impact on our city budget. So that culture was already in place. So the city staff was able to immediately spring into place knowing exactly what the council wanted, which was a no holds barred. Don't fool around. Don't create bureaucratic red tape. Let's not create, cumbersome policies and procedures.
By the way, Carol, the South Orange County Economic Coalition loves the elimination of red tape.
Thanks.
We're all about that.
Yeah. We're not red tape people, and frankly, I'm a business owner too. So I know firsthand, what was going on. So the last thing these people need that were, crushed by the shutdown was to, reach out for help, whether it's to the banking community or to their local jurisdiction, and have this impossibly difficult process. So the first thing we did is said, knock it off, let's get out there. Believe it or not, we knocked on doors. We went door to door. That was the very first thing we did.
Very cool.
And I know it sounds hokey, but a lot of business owners are just busy running their business. So they don't know what the resources, where to get the resources, what they are, where to get the information. So we fanned out across the community. We went door to door to our business, whether it was a restaurant or my dentist. We spoke to everybody about what resources are available, and the city jumped immediately into action.
Very cool. Now, the city jumps to action, but then folks need to pivot and figure out, Mike, what do I do? And probably one of the first people they go to talk to is their banker, right?
Yeah.
And there was just a little bit of confusion in the early days of, coronavirus 2020. What was going on? How were you helping folks, especially in those early days?
Well, it was mayhem, to be honest with you. But before I start, let me say, you mentioned in the beginning, it's hard to, entrepreneurs don't compare cities to other cities. Don't compare panelists to other panelists either, because I'm sitting next to a city council legend. It's easy for me to help folks out with financing, but she's in the day-to-day, and I applaud you. It was mayhem. I will tell you, probably in arrears, 70 to 80% of our clients were deeply impacted by coronavirus, but 100% of them were concerned about it. The PPP came out. We all learned together. Us bankers, we knew what we were watching the government say on TV. And how often do you hear things on TV that don't translate to real life? So there was definitely, we know it was needed. You had to take a leap of faith based on the global guidance and just trust the national narrative. We were blessed because our investors are local entrepreneurs. We are a backyard community bank, and I think that was kind of consistent throughout America. The community banks took the lead on this because we need you. I don't have the entire nation as my sandbox. I have a handful of backyards, and this is it. It was mayhem, and we're still figuring it out. But lots of hard work, lots of leveraging relationships, and we're getting it done.
Yeah, that local identity, that local presence. I mean, it really matters. When it comes right down to it, it really matters whether it's the culture of a town, your local bank, what have you. We'll get into more of that as we go forward. Carol, here in the city, what specific requirements did the city hand down for businesses to pivot to this outdoor reality?
Yeah, great question. Well, back to the red tape, we decided to cut through that. In fact, we decided to eliminate it. So we have, in Rancho Santa Margarita, uniquely, even prior to COVID, we have no business license fees. We're not going to penalize or tax our residents just because they want to be entrepreneurs. So we're not going to have that. So we created a policy in less than 24 hours to help businesses open up outdoors safely, and we communicated that to our staff all the way to our engineering department. So for example, here in Hannah's, we had to get our engineering department out here to determine how far out into the street it would be safe to allow Dave Hanna to push out his patio on for the restaurant. And then we created a permit process to do that. There are no fees to the businesses for these permits, and they're processed in less than 2 days. We aim for over the counter, which would be an instantaneous time.
Sure.
So we just need to create the permit so that we can actually go out and help those businesses understand how they can safely push their business outside.
Very good. And before we go on with more questions, just a reminder to our audience, feel free to post questions from home or your business. Just hit the button there at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to as many of those as we possibly can. Mike, what type of funding options are available for businesses to help them survive right now? I know there's a handful, but maybe you could walk our viewers through some of that.
Well, I think the most famous loan in the history of American finance was the PPP loan.
Right. Which stands for?
Paycheck Protection Program.
There you go.
Later I'll tell you there's going to be a fourth P on there called patience, because the back end of it's going to take a little time to work out. But really we should applaud the United States government. That was a Herculean effort. They really leveraged the SBA. And for the most part they turned banks into processing centers, but we were happy to pick up that charge on that. At this point, I'm sure everyone knows about the PPP. If you don't know about the EIDL loan, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, that is something that every business owner should have researched already. Both of those loans have a grant component to it. Those are the two primary options you should be looking at, because now is not a time to leverage yourself up, right? You have an interrupted revenue stream. Your opponent is invisible, and we don't know when it's going to end. So those are the first two. The next thing they should be doing, look for any city, county, or state grant. There's been a lot of them floating out there. They're kind of being created every day, so you just have to stay afloat with it. There's other tools too that I think folks should be aware of. If you have an existing SBA loan, almost every one of them, they're allowing you to have payment deferral, so you can take the weight of the monthly payment off you today and hopefully make pickup payments in 2021 when things are better. Banks that lend to
Mike, so not to interrupt you, but I'll interrupt you and just suggest that has there been any guidelines put on when those payments are deferred, when they come due, or anything along those lines?
Well, it's not unilateral for the different loan types, but pretty much everything I'm talking about doesn't involve a 2020 payment.
Okay.
And one of the things I'll tell you is when you're dealing with the PPP or the EIDL or an existing SBA loan, it's all government controlled. And wherever you are on our side of the government, they're listening and they're trying to do as much as they can. Everyone had a little bit of reservation at the front end. I did too, but we boldly went forward. And so far, they're doing everything we've asked them to. Okay. So I think we should trust that at least it's going to punt till early 2021. And if there is still an overwhelming need, there's probably going to be another level that's going to drop.
Right.
I want to bring up one other thing that I want everyone to think about. If you have a conventional loan with a bank, in particular a commercial real estate loan, lots of banks are just giving payment deferrals to the building owner. They're also circling back and giving 90-day interest only. So there's 3 to 6 months of kind of leniency on payments to the folks that own the building. I know a lot of the folks watching today are like, that's great, Mike, but I'm a renter. Have the conversation because they need to be empowered to come to us and ask for it. And I will tell you, lots of building owners are doing it as a precaution and have already done it as a precaution, just in case you come in and tell them I can't make rent or I need help. So I guarantee you, with no maliciousness by the building owners, I'm going to get to 2021 and look back and find out we gave a lot of forgiveness to building owners that never translated to rent relief for the tenant. So don't be afraid to have those conversations. I will tell you, I talked to 1,000 business owners in a month. Everybody, we're in this together. If you need help, everybody's asking for it. Have the conversation if you haven't already.
That's great advice, and it's something everyone needs to be thinking about moving forward. Thanks for that, Mike. We did have a question from our online audience, Carol, and it has to do with the movement outdoors. Has there been any impact, or do you anticipate any impact on traffic? Because you're taking lanes away, you're taking parking away.
Sure.
So parking and traffic challenges, have you seen any?
We haven't seen any congestion in Rancho. We have mostly shared parking opportunities in Rancho, and we're a little overparked in some areas. What we found what I think is a curious trend, we're here talking today about trends and how the community responds. We're seeing a pivot in the community. From day one, and I'll go back to being a city founder, we continually remind our community that your support of the businesses makes your city what you want it to be. You get the city you want.
That's right.
Based on supporting our businesses. So what we're finding, and speaking to Dave Hanna's earlier comments, the community is actively embracing this. I think they're doing takeout more than they would have before. They want to come to the restaurants to show their support. So it's not just a pent-up desire, to get out of your house and stop watching Netflix,
right.
And eating takeout.
Or more than one thing can be true at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think people want to come out and show their support for the restaurants.
Yeah.
I know that my fiance and I, we rotate around all the restaurants. I also want to see how they're doing, and I see the community, and the community members feel the same way too.
What was the biggest challenge for you as a city going into all of this? I engage a lot of council members all over the place, and I've never asked that question. For you in a city here, what was the biggest challenge you faced? Your whole city got shut down in a moment.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've got to be, as a city founder especially, you've got to go, oh my goodness. So what was that response like, and what was that biggest challenge for you?
Well, I can speak personally. Being a 32-year resident in Rancho Santa Margarita, I've known Dave Hanna for over 30 years. I've seen his first restaurant here in the community. So personally, my first thought as just a resident and a council member is, oh my gosh, I know these people. These aren't just businesses, these are people. And they put their lives and their life savings into these businesses. And they are going to get crushed. And we need to move. We need to do whatever we need to do immediately to help them. My second thought was, with my council hat on, is, our city budget's going to get decimated.
Right.
And it did. It took a significant hit. It took about 15% hit. I serve on a regional board with 24 other authorities having jurisdiction, mayors and city council members. So we were all commiserating together. Every city had that problem.
Sure.
And you can't just turn the streetlights off because it's expensive.
Right.
You have to continue to make it work.
Public safety and everything.
You
that's
got
wrong with
you
it.
got to clean the streets, pick up the trash. You've got to do it all. And so that was our immediate concern. So we knew belt tightening instantaneously when it happened would have to be our second priority. But we knew we had to help these businesses because they're our family.
Yeah. They're lifeblood of a town, and they're
They
your
are,
family and
yeah.
friends. Absolutely. Mike, you were dealing with folks who are real world. My goodness, my business is shut down,
Yes.
and I've got employees to take care of. Walk me through that experience as a banker. And it's a different perspective than a council member or even a business owner, because you're seeing hundreds, perhaps thousands of these people, and their whole world is in absolute chaos.
Yeah, and I mean, and you're dealing with real money, and I will tell you, it's funny. I think I was more of a therapist than I was a banker.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think that speaks to relationship. I mean, one of the things that I try to always implore to entrepreneurs is that the world's going to reflect back at you. If you've been in your community and you've been caring about your community, and if you haven't done enough in the past, this is a great wake-up call to do it. Because the number one reason folks are surviving as entrepreneurs, besides their incredible bootstrapping skills, which you know as an entrepreneur, you're born with those, right? You have them. But it's relationships. And whether it's reaching out to your banker or city council, it's tough, but it's solvable. It's solvable. We're getting there, and I think that's the biggest. That's the biggest piece. I'll tell you from a bank perspective. 70-80% of the businesses are actually still being very impacted by this, but 20 or 30 are doing well. And I would say community banks, I'm blessed to be in that segment because we are smaller, we're more nimble, and again, we care. Like, we don't exist. We only exist if we have a thriving business community. So we are in it with you. We're going to listen. You got to pick up the phone and talk to us about it. You might not always get every answer that you want, but we're also talking to hundreds of folks just like you.
Right.
So it's
Right.
important.
It's huge.
Well, I can learn some lessons along the way there as well, for sure.
I'm learning them from others. I'm just regurgitating.
That's the story of my life.
So,
Carol, we did have a question come in from Kristen Camilla, our former chair here. You had mentioned sales tax impacts on city budgets. What impacts to the budget is Rancho experiencing, and how is the city preparing and responding to those impacts?
Well, I know Kristen well. She's a wonderful member of our community, and she's also on our planning commission.
Absolutely.
So hi, Kristen. Great question. So Rancho Santa Margarita took a 15% hit in our sales tax revenue. And also, we know we're going to have a delay in the receipt of that. So because of the natural way the cash flow works for a city, we don't see that hit, day 2. We actually see that hit more day 60 to day 90.
Okay.
And so we know we have the cash today, but we have to anticipate the downturn. The downturn did come, and we are seeing it. And so the first thing we can do, it was really interesting. And so, I'm going to go off these, political talking points just as a person.
Thank you.
Just as a person. The first thing that happened, and it just touched me so much, was our city staff said, hey, by the way, we're deferring all pay raises. And they proposed that to us.
Wow.
And so it wasn't the awkward position of perhaps us proposing that to them. Led by our city manager, Jennifer Cervantes, they said, this is what we're going to do because we care about our city and we care about all the residents here we serve. That's just a small snippet of what we're experiencing through this pandemic. So heroes and fantastic positive things are happening in the most dire circumstances.
Absolutely.
So we did close our community center. We shut the doors, turned off the air conditioning, and turned off the lights because we could not have gatherings there.
Sure.
And speaking of community involvement, I was so happy to be here today with Mike Chambers because Mike is on the board of directors of the Boys and Girls Club, and the Boys and Girls Club serves Rancho Santa Margarita. So our immediate concern was the 100 or so children that come to the community center every day for those great programs. And I'm a big fan of the Boys and Girls Club. Well, they don't have a place to go. And so we know that in closing the doors in the community center, we were impacting the community. We had no choice. We were unable to open. That saved the community money, believe it or not, because it is something that the city funds, and it's a donor to the city budget. So we were able to cobble together, in the short 20 years we've been a city, over 120% of our annual operating expenses in the bank. So we have
good.
reserves in excess of our annual costs, so the community will be happy to know that of the $23 million we've amassed in our savings account, we backstopped our budget with only $500,000.
Very good.
And that's what it is. It's a rainy day fund. And this is definitely a rainy day.
Well, it's one of these things,
Yeah.
right? And Mike, I'm sure you're seeing this all over the place. Folks who have prepared are prepared for the rainy day.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. And listen, whether you've been prepared or you're not, I want to point out something you said. Just as human beings, there's no titles right now.
Right.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. The opponent's invisible. We don't know when it's going to end, and we're all in this together. And I know that at the Wall Street level, you hear a lot of negative news, but at the Main Street level, I'm actually seeing a galvanization. There's lots of folks that care. So just again, don't be afraid to reach out and leverage. She's a first-class city council person, but you're a person of the community first and foremost.
Thank
right,
you,
and it's
Mike.
important.
Yes.
So I just want to touch on. I just want to say that to the whole world. So keep having the discussion, please. The answers are out there, and we're all in it. So and what I have found is that I can't do as much. Right. If I'm here, it's because I'm important. If I'm going to a restaurant, it's not even because I like the food, it's because I want to see that. It's almost like a donation and I get food, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? Because I just want to support them. And we're all sitting around a little bit isolated, but I think everybody watching this knows it's bigger than us and we just want to help. We just want to help. Right? And that's a powerful tool. And I sit around and I don't think to myself as a banker the same set of rules that I've been governed by. And I am governed.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, how can I take what I have, just like you guys? Every entrepreneur we heard the earlier panel saying that you're making the most with what you have.
Right.
And I think that's the key. And the number one thing I'll tell everybody is we're going to get through this, and you're going to really redefine relationship. We are in a valley, and I think that's when you find out who your true relationships and friends are.
Oh, definitely.
We are in a valley, Mike, and you had mentioned something earlier, and it feels as though, and again, I try not to get too wrapped up in the feels, but it feels as though we're perhaps turning a corner, that the communities have kind of come together, and that there is a path forward. Are you feeling that, Carol?
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I think, one of the most interesting things, and to Mike's point also, and I do agree with you, Paul, we didn't send out email blasts or form letters to our businesses. We actually divided up the city and we went door to door to businesses. Yeah. And I think they couldn't have been more shocked when a mayor, a council member, a city staff person walked in with armloads of collateral, information, and business cards, and said, "I'm from the government, and I'm here to help." Right?
What could possibly go wrong?
Yes, exactly. I've had business owners that I've met through this process that were in tears and crying and couldn't believe that we were going door to door, and we did it repeatedly throughout the city. So we got to know our businesses better. We connected our businesses to each other, because we could say, "Oh, you've got this problem. Well, this person has the solution."
Right. Go see Mike.
And
Mike can help you out.
and
right.
you create a family of the businesses in the city. These people are suffering. We get it. And I had a phone call yesterday from my dentist who was not aware of the grant program. That was monies that were sent to the cities, and I was getting my teeth cleaned and was telling him about it, and he said, "I can't believe I called the city. I got someone answering the phone. They helped me fill out the paperwork. It took 20 minutes. I submitted, and I actually was a grant recipient. And I would have never known had you not, but for your dental hygiene practices, And so it's that connection that, as a community leader or just a person that cares about your city, you can make a difference. And these businesses, I cannot tell you how supportive we want to be as a city.
That's fantastic.
Carol's one of the few people that sits in a dental chair and thinks about helping the dentist. I'm cursing him out.
Mike, that's something you and I have in common. I'm with you there. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here this morning. And Carol, thank you for hosting us here in beautiful Rancho Santa Margarita.
Thank you. We're so
Love coming
happy
down
to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, you were fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you for participating. We really appreciate your time this morning as well.
Thrilled to be here.
Thank
Honored
you.
to be sitting next to this lady. And guys, we're all going to get through this.
Absolutely, we are, and I think we've gotten through the morning. With that, thank you very much for participating. We'd like to direct you to the economiccoalition.com, where you can get all the latest news and different positions that our organization has taken, the ways that we're advocating on behalf of the business community. Also, feel free to find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I've done my due diligence here and telling you to go do the social media thing. So with that, I guess my duty here is done this morning. It's been a pleasure. Look forward to seeing you October 2nd, where we are going to get into ballot initiatives. Imagine that. We're going to get into the crazy part of 2020. Who knew? Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.